The celebration continued as word spread throughout Oak Ridge Estates. Within days, small blue pools bloomed across backyards like flowers after a desert rain. Children who had previously only waved to each other from car windows formed new friendships over water fights and diving contests for plastic rings. 2 weeks later, a mysterious envelope appeared in Alex's mailbox. No return address, no HOA crest. Inside was a printed ballot for the fall HOA board elections with Alex's name typed neatly in the write-in candidate space, along with a sticky note that read simply, "We need you." Standing in the dapple shade of the maple tree, watching Emma and Liam splash with their new friends in the humble pool that had started it all, Alex smiled. The water that had caused so much trouble had also, somehow, washed away the isolation that had settled over their community like dust. As Gerald Thompson was fond of saying at the now-packed monthly meetings, sometimes the most important stands in life are taken in the smallest of pools. And Patricia, she redirected her considerable energy toward a crusade against bird feeders, but found the neighborhood strangely resistant to her concerns about unauthorized avian feeding stations. The revolution, it seemed, had only just begun. The ripple effects of what became known as the Great Pool Rebellion continued throughout the summer. The newly formed Community Standards Review Committee, pointedly not including Patricia, began systematically revisiting and modernizing the more outdated HOA restrictions. Mrs. Pato's garden stakes were granted a permanent exemption for cultural and culinary significance. The Jenkins family finally installed the swing set their daughter had wanted for 3 years. The Carmichaels hosted a neighborhood ice cream social where children splashed between no fewer than 7 inflatable pools arranged in their expansive backyard. Most remarkably, the community began to feel like a neighborhood again. Impromptu gatherings replaced suspicious glances. Families left their blinds open. People lingered to chat during evening walks instead of hurrying past with polite but distant nods. One evening in late August, as Alex sat watching the sunset, while the kids played a final round of Marco Polo before bedtime, Mr. Rees ambled over and settled into the neighboring lawn chair with a contented sigh. "You know," the older man said thoughtfully, "I've lived in Oak Ridge Estates for 23 years. Watched it change from a place where people knew each other's names to a collection of expensive houses where people hid behind their doors, terrified of violating some regulation." He gestured toward the children splashing in the humble blue pool. "This summer's been different, like the old days." Alex nodded, watching as Emma helped Liam perfect his underwater handstand, all because of a $39.99 pool. "No," Mr. Reeds corrected gently, "because someone finally stood up to the nonsense, reminded us all why we wanted to live in a community in the first place." He raised his lemonade in a toast to small stands and big changes. Alex clinked glasses with the older man, reflecting on how the summer had transformed from a dreaded endurance test into something magical. Sometimes the most important battles weren't the ones you planned for. Sometimes they found you in the form of a discount inflatable pool and a neighborhood busybody with too much time on her hands. And sometimes, just sometimes, those battles changed everything. "Daddy, watch this," Liam called, preparing for what would certainly be the most spectacular cannonball in the history of kiddie pools. Alex set down the glass and turned toward the children with a smile. "I'm watching, buddy. I'm watching everything." 3 days later, Alex's thumb sliced through a heavy cream-colored envelope bearing the ominous gold-embossed crest of the Oak Ridge Estates Homeowners Association. The paper inside was thick and expensive, the kind reserved for wedding invitations or, apparently, neighborhood declarations of war. "Notice of violation," screamed the bold red header. Below it, in impressively formal language, was citation 23.7 bits, unauthorized aquatic installation without proper permits and safety measures. Alex choked on a sip of coffee when reaching the part where HOA President Gerald Thompson had somehow managed to describe the kiddie pool as an unpermitted residential water reservoir of concerning magnitude. The letter demanded immediate removal and included a $150 fine, with threats of additional $50 daily penalties for continued non-compliance. Most surreal was the attached evidence. 3 glossy color photos of the infamous pool, one with a yellow measuring tape stretched conspicuously across its diameter. The petty thoroughness was almost admirable. "This has to be a joke," Alex muttered, dialing the HOA office with shaking fingers. After navigating a labyrinth of automated menu options, for landscaping violations, press 4. For unauthorized holiday decorations, press 5. Alex finally reached Gerald Thompson, a man whose nervous phone manner suggested he spent most days delivering bad news from the safety of his office. "Mr. Thompson, this is Alex Morgan. I've received a violation notice about a children's pool that couldn't drown a cat." "Ah yes, the Morgan residence," Gerald replied, the sound of anxious paper shuffling coming through the line. "We've received multiple reports." "Multiple? You mean Patricia?" Well, several board members have expressed serious concerns about standing water, mosquito breeding potential, and it's a target kiddie pool that I empty every night," Alex interrupted, pacing the kitchen. "I've seen bird baths in this neighborhood that hold more water." An uncomfortable silence followed before Gerald cleared his throat. "I understand your frustration, but rules exist for everyone's benefit. Patricia has provided quite extensive documentation." That evening, as Alex sadly deflated the tiny blue pool, Emma watched with the kind of devastation usually reserved for canceled birthday parties. Liam kicked at the grass, his small shoulders slumped in defeat. "But why doesn't Karen want us to have fun, Daddy?" Emma asked, a tear rolling down her sunburned cheek. "We weren't hurting anybody." Alex knelt down, looking both children in the eyes. "Sometimes adults forget what's really important. But don't worry, this isn't over." After tucking the kids in bed, Alex sat at the kitchen table with a glass of wine, Patricia's smug face burning in their mind. The fight over a $39.99 pool had suddenly become something much bigger. A battle for summer joy, common sense, and the right to let kids be kids without filing paperwork in triplicate. The next morning, Alex called in sick to work, a first in 3 years of perfect attendance. This tiny rebellion felt appropriate for what was coming next. First up, the Oak Ridge Estates office, a converted colonial-style house at the neighborhood entrance, where Gerald Thompson managed HOA affairs with his assistant, a perpetually frazzled woman named Brenda. "I'd like to file a formal appeal," Alex announced, sliding a folder across Brenda's desk. Inside was a 12-page document citing county regulations, HOA bylaws, and a photographic catalog of every water featured in the neighborhood from bird baths to decorative fountains, complete with measurements. Brenda's eyes widened as she flipped through the materials. "This is comprehensive. I've also included a FOIA request for all water feature permits issued in the last 5 years." Alex added with feigned casualness, "just for comparison purposes." "I'll get this to Mr. Thompson right away," Brenda stammered, looking both impressed and alarmed. On the 4th day, as Alex stood barefoot on the lawn, directing the garden hose into the pool, the distinctive click-clack of expensive heels on pavement provided a 3-second warning before disaster struck. "Excuse me, what exactly do you think you're doing?" The voice sliced through the peaceful afternoon like a paper cut, sharp, unexpected, and disproportionately painful. Alex slowly turned to face Patricia Winters, Oak Ridge Estate's most feared HOA enforcer, a woman who'd earned the neighborhood nickname, Complaint Karen, through years of dedicated service to property values and misery distribution. Patricia stood at the edge of Alex's lawn like an avenging angel in a Lily Pulitzer dress and pearls, her artificially whitened teeth gleaming behind coral lipstick. Her designer sunglasses, worn despite the cloudy day, reflected Alex's startled expression back at them. "I'm filling a kiddie pool," Alex replied, instinctively adopting the questioning tone people use when suddenly made to feel guilty for perfectly normal activities. Emma and Liam, sensing the shift in atmosphere, froze in their swimsuits, their excited bouncing replaced by the stillness of prey animals detecting a predator. Patricia's French manicured hand flew to her collar in exaggerated shock. "Are you aware," she began, in the tone normally reserved for informing someone they were parked in a handicapped space, that all permanent water structures in Oak Ridge Estates require prior board written approval. Section 17, paragraph 4 of our community guidelines clearly states, "It's an inflatable pool from Target," Alex interrupted, gesturing weakly at the cheerful blue plastic circle. "I empty it every night and flip it over. It's not exactly the Bellagio fountain." Patricia's eyes narrowed to slits behind her sunglasses. In one fluid motion, she produced an iPhone Pro Max and began documenting the scene from multiple angles, her thumb flying across the screen with practiced efficiency. "Water features exceeding 36 inches in diameter require proper documentation, approval, and safety assessment," she announced, somehow managing to sound simultaneously bored and thrilled. "The board will be reviewing this flagrant violation promptly." As Patricia click-clacked away down the sidewalk, Alex noticed the subtle movement of curtains in nearby windows, neighbors witnessing the spectacle with a particular blend of sympathy and relief that comes from watching someone else become Patricia's target of the week. "Is the pool going away?" Liam asked in a small voice. "Not if I can help it," Alex muttered, already knowing this was a fight that would define their summer. Later that evening, Alex recounted the confrontation to neighbor Sophia Martinez over the fence while the children played inside. "Oh, you've been winterized," Sophia sighed, passing over a sympathetic glass of sangria. "Consider it your official Oak Ridge Estates initiation." "Is she always like this?" Alex asked, gratefully accepting the drink. "Patricia, she's actually having a good day. Last month, she measured the Thompsons' grass with a ruler and fined them for being a quarter-inch over regulation height." Sophia took a thoughtful sip. "Before that, she forced the Patel family to repaint their front door because the shade of blue was provocatively non-conforming." "That's insane," Alex sputtered. "How does she get away with it?" "Her husband's the biggest donor to the community fund, and she has unlimited free time since she retired from terrorizing retail workers as a professional manager-demander." Sophia looked around conspiratorially before adding, "Plus, she's best friends with Gerald Thompson's wife. Gerald's the HOA president." "Fantastic," Alex groaned. "So what happens next?" "You'll get a notice, probably with a fine," Sophia explained, topping off their glasses. "Most people just pay it and move on. It's the path of least resistance." "And if I don't?" Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Nobody really knows. Legend has it the Hendricksons tried to fight a citation for excessive holiday illumination back in 2018. They moved out 2 months later. Their Christmas lights are still in an evidence box in the HOA storage room." After Sophia left, Alex stared at the sad, empty pool lying deflated on the lawn. The rational move would be to put it away and surrender. After all, it was just a cheap inflatable pool. But watching Emma and Liam through the window, their faces glued to tablets instead of splashing in summer joy, something hardened in Alex's resolve. This wasn't just about a pool anymore. It was about standing up to petty tyranny, about teaching the children that sometimes you had to fight for what was right, even if it was small. The next morning, Alex refilled the pool, placed 2 lawn chairs beside it, and settled in with a book and a deliberately visible copy of the HOA guidelines. The battle lines were drawn. "This is about property values and community standards," she insisted, voice climbing toward dog whistle territory. "If we allow one inflatable pool, next it's trampolines, then basketball hoops, then who knows what else. Bounce houses, tiki torches. Our prestigious neighborhood will look like a carnival." The room exploded into what could only be described as productive chaos. Sophia Martinez stood up with her phone, showing photos of HOA-approved neighborhoods with significantly higher property values that somehow managed to survive the presence of children's recreational equipment. "My daughter can't even have a swing set," called Michael Jenkins from the back. But the Carmichael's koi pond got fast-tracked approval. "Remember when you cited the Patels for excessive gardening?" someone else shouted. As parents and homeowners voiced years of accumulated frustrations, Alex caught Gerald Thompson's eye across the room. For the first time, the HOA president looked genuinely worried, and not just about property values. The meeting stretched well beyond its scheduled hour. As the discussion intensified, neighbors began sharing stories of Patricia's reign of restriction, holiday decorations deemed excessively festive, citations for garage doors left open beyond reasonable duration, even a warning issued to an 8-year-old for a lemonade stand that constituted an unlicensed commercial enterprise. Mrs. Patel, a soft-spoken botanist whose garden was the secret envy of the neighborhood, finally raised her hand. When recognized, she stood with quiet dignity. "I have lived in this community for 17 years, she said, her voice gentle but firm. "When my husband died last winter, this garden became my solace." Then Mrs. Winters delivered a notice that my tomato stakes were 3 inches too tall. She looked directly at Patricia. "This is not about property values. This is about control." The room fell silent. Gerald Thompson cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Perhaps," he suggested tentatively, "we should revisit some of our interpretations of the guidelines. Form a committee to review?" "A committee?" Patricia's voice could have shattered glass. "You want to form a committee because one resident refuses to follow the rules. Rules that everyone agreed to when they moved here." "Actually," Alex interjected, sliding a final document across the table, "I've reviewed our HOA charter. Article 8, Section 3 states that any bylaw can be amended by a simple majority vote of homeowners present at a general meeting, provided attendance exceeds 25% of total households." A quick glance around the packed room. "I believe we more than qualify." Gerald's eyebrows shot up as he studied the document. Beside him, Patricia's complexion had progressed from red to the concerning shade of purple. "I move," Alex said clearly, "that we vote tonight on an amendment permitting reasonable temporary recreational equipment, including inflatable pools under 5 feet in diameter." From the back of the room, Mr. Reeds called out, "I second the motion." And with that, the Oak Ridge Estates Pool Rebellion of 2025 officially commenced. A week after what neighbors were now calling the pool putsch, Alex approached the mailbox with the caution of someone disarming a bomb. Inside lay another cream-colored envelope bearing the Oak Ridge Estates crest. "Here we go," Alex muttered, tearing it open at the kitchen counter while Emma and Liam watched anxiously from their cereal bowls. Inside was not another fine notice, but something far more unexpected. A revised community guideline amendment printed on the same expensive paper, but somehow less threatening. Updated Regulation 23.7. Temporary recreational equipment, including inflatable pools not exceeding 5 feet in diameter and 18 inches in depth, are permitted between Memorial Day and Labor Day, provided they are emptied and stored when not in active use. Attached was a brief note on HOA letterhead. "The board has voted 4-1 to adopt this amendment, effective immediately. Additionally, your previous violation notice has been rescinded, and any paid fines will be credited to your HOA account. We appreciate your engagement in our community governance process." At the bottom, in handwriting that could only be described as aggressively neat, Gerald Thompson had added, unofficially, "Well played, Morgan." "We W on." Emma shrieked, spraying Cheerios across the table. "We won," Alex confirmed, trying and failing to suppress a grin of pure satisfaction. That afternoon, the resurrection of the Blue Pool became a neighborhood event. The Martinses brought their twins and a cooler of popsicles. The Jenkinses arrived with water balloons. Someone connected a portable speaker, and soon the sounds of splashing and laughter filled the backyard. As the impromptu pool party reached its peak, conversation hushed momentarily as a familiar figure appeared at the edge of the gathering. Patricia Winters stood rigid in pressed linen, clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield, sunglasses firmly in place despite the cloudy day. For a tense moment, the adults exchanged glances, wondering if this hard-won victory was about to be challenged. Then Gerald Thompson emerged from the crowd, plate of barbecue in hand. "Patricia," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I believe we've demonstrated that reasonable accommodation for families benefits our entire community. Perhaps it's time to focus our oversight energies elsewhere." Patricia's lips pressed into a bloodless line. Without a word, she turned and marched away, the click-clack of her heels fading down the sidewalk. Alex Morgan was at breaking point. The record-breaking heatwave had turned their modest suburban home into a pressure cooker of whining, fighting, and endless complaints from 7-year-old Emma and 5-year-old Liam. With their air conditioner struggling and summer vacation stretching endlessly ahead, Alex desperately needed a win. "Daddy, I'm melting." Emma dramatically sprawled across the kitchen floor one morning, tongue lolling out. Like actually, scientifically melting. Liam, not to be outdone, had stripped down to his underwear and was pressing himself against the refrigerator door. "My brain is on fire," he announced solemnly. The community pool might as well have been on another planet. A chaotic, chlorine-scented nightmare of screaming children and judgmental parents, topped off with a 40-minute round trip that inevitably ended in sunburns and ice cream-induced tantrums. After a particularly grueling morning of referee parenting, Alex's salvation arrived in the form of a lightning deal notification. Summer Splash Kiddie Pool, 48% OFTODA only. The modest blue inflatable pool was nothing special, just 4 feet in diameter and barely a foot deep. But in Alex's exhausted eyes, it might as well have been an oasis in the desert. The afternoon the pool arrived, Alex orchestrated the setup like a military operation, strategically positioning it in the sunniest spot of their postage-stamp backyard, yet cunningly tucked behind a decorative shrub, just obscured enough from the street to avoid attracting attention from the notoriously picky Oak Ridge Estates HOA patrol. When the kids cannonballed into their new aquatic kingdom, their shrieks of joy were worth every penny of the $39.99 investment. For 3 glorious days, peace reigned in the Morgan household. Emma and Liam splashed contentedly for hours while Alex sipped iced coffee on the patio, occasionally glancing up from work emails to marvel at how something so simple could restore sanity to their summer. Alex had moved to Oak Ridge Estates 2 years ago after the divorce, attracted by the good school district and the pristine neighborhood. What the real estate agent had euphemistically described as active community standards had seemed like a small price to pay for safety and stability. The lengthy HOA guidebook had been skimmed and forgotten during the chaos of moving boxes and custody arrangements. Now, standing in the doorway watching the children play, Alex noticed Mrs. Henderson next door peering over the fence, her garden hat not quite concealing her scrutiny of the new addition to the Morgan backyard. "Just a kiddie pool," Alex called with a friendly wave, trying to survive the heat. Mrs. Henderson's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, how resourceful," she replied, before disappearing back behind her meticulously pruned hydrangeas. That evening, as Alex drained the pool and flipped it over as per the bedtime routine they'd established, a comment from their elderly neighbor Mr. Reeves drifted over from his evening constitutional. "Better not let Patricia see that thing," he chuckled, leaning on his walking stick. "She cited the Johnsons for having a bird bath that was excessive in circumference last spring." Alex laughed it off. "It's just a kiddie pool. Surely even the HOA has better things to do." Mr. Reeves shook his head with the wisdom of someone who had witnessed decades of suburban warfare. "Patricia Winters doesn't have better things to do. That's the problem." Alex waved goodbye to Mr. Reeves and headed inside, dismissing the warning. After all, what kind of person would begrudge children a tiny pool during the hottest summer on record? The answer to that question would arrive all too soon. The second stop was more tactical, the local hardware store, where Alex purchased materials for a hand-painted sign reading "Save Our Cinema" alongside a comically small drawing of a kiddie pool. By noon, the sign was staked firmly in the front yard, visible to anyone driving through Oak Ridge Estates. By 12:30, Sophia had texted a photo of Patricia standing across the street, talking rapidly into her phone while gesturing at the sign. By 1 p.m., Alex's phone was ringing with an unknown number. "Alex Morgan speaking." "This is Gerald Thompson," came the strained voice. "I think we need to discuss a resolution to this situation. Patricia is threatening to call an emergency board meeting, and frankly, I have theater tickets tonight." Alex smiled into the phone. "I'm happy to discuss this, Gerald. But to be clear, My kids will have their pool back by tomorrow, or your inbox will be flooded with appeals from every family in this neighborhood with children under 12. There was a moment of silence, then a long sigh. Let me see what I can do. When the kids returned from day camp that afternoon, they found Alex sitting calmly beside an empty, deflated pool on the lawn. Is it gone forever? Liam asked, lower lip quivering. Alex winked. Just waiting for reinforcements, buddy. The battle for summer has just begun. Alex's kitchen table disappeared beneath a fortress of paperwork. The 47-page Oak Ridge Estates Community Guidelines, printed and annotated with sticky tabs, highlighted printouts of county ordinances, screenshots from the HOA's own Facebook page showing board members' children playing in suspiciously similar pools, 3 legal pads covered in increasingly agitated handwriting. There is absolutely no thing about temporary pools, Alex muttered, draining a third cup of coffee at 1 a.m. Nothing. The next morning, bleary-eyed but determined, Alex began the counter-offensive. First came the carefully worded email to every neighbor in a 3-block radius, explaining the situation with just enough humor to mask the simmering rage underneath. Then the strategic deployment of Emma and Liam to play with neighborhood friends, casually mentioning how their pool had been banned by the mean lady. By evening, Alex's phone buzzed constantly with messages of support and outrage. Neighborhood mom Sofia Martinez revealed that her family's request to install a wheelchair ramp for her mother had been delayed 6 months by Patricia's aesthetic concerns. The Jacobsons shared photos of Patricia measuring their mailbox with a ruler. The revolution had found its spark. The monthly HOA meeting, normally attended by the same 7 retirees with nothing better to do, saw record attendance. The Oak Ridge Estates Community Center's aging air conditioner struggled against the combined body heat of 50 determined residents as Alex approached the podium. Alex had dressed for battle in crisp business casual, armed with a color-coded binder and the quiet confidence of someone with absolutely nothing left to lose. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board, Alex began, voice steady despite Patricia's laser-focused glare from behind the table. I'd like to discuss the recent classification of my children's inflatable wading pool as an. Alex paused for dramatic effect. Consulting notes. Illegal aquatic installation of concerning magnitude. A ripple of laughter broke the tension. Even Gerald Thompson had the decency to look embarrassed. What followed was a methodical dismantling of the violation. Alex presented side-by-side comparisons of the community guidelines definition of water features, clearly intended for permanent structures, and the sad, deflated reality of the target pool. Photos documented 12 similar pools throughout the neighborhood, including, in a masterful coup de grace, one visible in the background of the HOA's own 4th of July newsletter, captioned Summer Fun in Oak Ridge Estates. Patricia's face progressed through an impressive spectrum of reds as Alex concluded by presenting a petition signed by 26 families supporting reasonable childhood summer activities without bureaucratic harassment. The moment Alex finished, Patricia shot to her feet, pearl necklace quivering with indignation.